Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach. Tonight, we're not starting off in a same tone as we usually do. So excitement of being here. We're realizing that almost 2,000 years have passed, and every year Hashem has to make the decision all over again to build or not to build the Beis HaMikdash, and He doesn't. We have to ask ourselves why. Tonight's shiur will be for the safe return and miracles for Rudy Brockman, Andrew Jared Liebman, Edward David Benaim, Miss Liz Benaga, also for the Teshuvah Shlema, and that's the Charabah for Shimshon Ben Tanya Tamar, Refuah Shlema for Rabbanit Levana Bat Sarah, Rabbanit Sarah Bat Anat, Talia Bat Sarah, David Ben Esriya, Orit Bat Ilana, Alex Ben Noach, Rav Feinstein Ben Shulamit, and Tzlacha Rabba for Marsha Bat Julie, Ayla Bat Marsha, safe return for Ayla Bat Marsha, little baby, been gone from her Ima for almost a year and a half. Imagine having a 1.5-year-old baby gone. 1.5 years. Have a father take like a criminal in the middle of the night. Imagine living like that for 1.5 years. Baby can't see a mom. Imagine Rudy's parents and Edward's parents. Imagine Noah's parents. Can't see a kid. Can't call and say hello. You don't know what's happening. Imagine that. Every day we're supposed to cry over Beis HaMikdash. We don't cry over Beis HaMikdash. We cry over our problems. We cry, maybe we don't have zivug, money, health. Nobody really cares about Beis HaMikdash. Most people think it's just another building. But sages instituted for us to mourn over the Beis HaMikdash. How do you mourn over the Beis HaMikdash? You start thinking, maybe your problems are not such a big deal. Maybe your problems don't mean anything really. You're spoiled, like a little baby. Maybe somebody else's problems are bigger than yours. How many people think like that? How many people care enough about other people? Rav David Feinstein, Rav Shalom, all he cared was about other people. Says, there was one time some sort of event where they had Rav David Feinstein as part of the event, and they had some other people there. I think they had people even of different religions there. And they asked him, if you can go back to any time, who would you meet? Who would you want to meet? So, one guy said they wanted to meet Yoshke, I don't know. Said the idol worshipper wants to meet his idol. Perfectly normal. Especially if the idol can move. They have eyes but they can't see, ears but they can't hear, mouth and they can't speak. So they figured maybe if they meet the idol, he can move. Another guy says, maybe if I met such and such person. Okay. So you meet such and such person. Maybe they'll discover something that's going to make them more money today. There's been movies written, made about that. Somebody wants to go back in time so they could buy something or sell something or do something just in the right time, and they can make a fortune. So their present changes. They want to go back to the past, so the present changes. I could tell you that Rav David Feinstein didn't answer the same way as these other people. He didn't answer the same way. He definitely did not answer the same way. I could assure you that if you asked Rudy, he wouldn't want to go back in time to make more money. Noam wouldn't want to make more money or talk to somebody. Edward, not so much. Malsha, she wouldn't want to go back in the past and ask somebody if they can make more money or discover something. All of the countless other people that we deal with on a daily basis, I can assure you not a single one of them would ask for more money. Not a different house. It would take them a little bit of a while to figure out what's the exact thing to do that they could have done to change things. Because the decree was from Shemayim. What could I do to change? I could tell you what Rav David Feinstein said. He said, if I can go back in time to any time I want to go back to the Holocaust. This, of course, shocked everybody. Yes, why would the Rav want to go back to the Holocaust? He says, I want to go back to the Holocaust and find some hungry people. Why? Why do you want to go find hungry people? Everybody was hungry. All they were was hungry. And if they weren't hungry, they were already dead. Why? And Rav David Feinstein, with all of his kedusha, says, I go back to go find somebody that's hungry so I could feed them. That's all I want. I could feed somebody. That's a good achievement. It's worth it to go back to the past for something like that. They said, but you can go any time. He said, yeah, that's the time I pick. If you're asking yourself why I didn't say, why don't I go back and maybe meet Moshe Rabbeinu, perhaps Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, I want that. Don't think for a moment I don't want it, he says. I want to go meet Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. I'd love to. Moshe Rabbeinu? Unbelievable. Be fantastic to meet him. What good would that do in the world? That's just selfish. It's just for me. If I'm just going to live for me, there's no point to live. In a few moments, a Gadol Hador can summarize why we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, why we have a disaster after disaster happening in our lives. And every year, we're back here. Some cry, some don't. Some pretend they care, and some outright don't. Maybe they care about what meal they'll have once the fast is over. Whether they're really going to sleep on the floor and sit on the floor for that much longer, or as soon as it's painful, we could stop. Is that guy really crying at the end of the room, or he's just making a show? Sometimes you don't even know why you're crying. And you don't know why you're not crying. I'll tell you why. You see, Rabotai, one of the reasons why a Gadol, a Ish Chesed, has an easy time crying over the Beis HaMikdash, crying over Am Yisrael, crying over some things that other people don't think you need to cry over even, is because he's just like a parent, but not like any parent. He's like the mother, mostly. Why the mother? You see, normally, a mother can love the children a lot more than the father, normally. Sometimes that changes. Certain things different than usual. But normally, the mother has a natural love for the children that's much greater than the father could ever have. As much as I love my children, I know for a fact it is impossible for me to love them as much as my dear wife. And I love my kids. But I don't think I can love them as much as she does. My father loved us and still loves us. But no one in the world loved us like my mom and still loves us like my mom. And you see the same thing in other families. It's nothing embarrassing. It's nothing speculative. It's true. Generally speaking, and like I said, there's always an exception to every rule. The mother loves the kids in an unnatural way that the father simply cannot attain. Most of the time, can't even understand. Well, I'll tell you the secret. The more you invest in something, the more you fall in love with it. The more you invest in your children, the more headaches you get from them, the more trouble you get from them, the more you get offended by them and hurt by them. But needless to say, the more you love them. Generally speaking, the mother spends the most amount of time in the kids. They begin as a body part, nothing less, as a body part. To the father, they begin more like a nuisance that causes his life to change, and he's not really sure why yet. Normally. Later on, this body part begins to hurt. But a normal mother loves it nonetheless. The more it's painful, the more she has no idea why she got into this place in the first place. But that feeling is gone in a second. The moment the baby exits her body, and she sees it for the first time. All of the pain and agony that she suffered for 9 months, especially the last month, is instantly gone. She doesn't realize the pain only began. Because now she has to deal with this child for as long as she's alive, especially until some other woman takes kid, or some other man. And she takes the kid, and she nurses the kid, and she babies the kid, and she loses sleep over the kid, and she feeds him, and she bathes him, and she changes him, and she finds him funny, and she cries because of him and her. And she spends every waking minute taking care of this kid. The more she takes care of this kid, the more she loves her, the more she loves him. The more she invests in this baby, the more she loves the baby. The thought of being separated from the baby causes her discomfort. Someone tells her one day, oh yeah, maybe you can take your baby to school. If the mom is not ready yet, she finds such information offensive. She doesn't want to hear about the baby being away from her. What do you mean school? I am the school. This is school. She's next to me. He's next to me. She doesn't want to leave the baby's side. Of course, that changes for some people that choose to make money their baby, or some type of notoriety or career their baby. But normal women throughout all of the generations made the actual baby the baby, and wanted to spend as much time as possible with that kid. And therefore, even after the kid grew up and caused more and more trouble and broke more and more things and drove the mom and the father more and more crazy, and sometimes even caused fighting between them, generally speaking, the love that the baby has from the mom continues to grow in an unnatural way. The love the mom has for the baby continues to grow. You would think when he's small, or she's small, okay, it's the cutest it's ever going to be. Okay, so you love him the most then. No such thing. In fact, the moment the baby is born is the least amount that you love the baby. The least amount. From the time he's alive, she's alive. Why? You've only invested a short period of time into this baby. When you invest more time into the baby, and you go crazier over the baby, you'll love the baby a lot more. And that's why the love that a mom has for a child continues to grow. When a leader among Am Yisrael is told that someone in Israel is hurt, is hungry, is troubled in any way, that leader automatically has a pain. It's very similar to a mother. And the reason why is because he's already been taking care of his family for all of his life. When Rav Feinstein was asked the question of what could he do, who could he meet, where could he go, he didn't think like an average person who thinks, let me go take care of me. Let me go meet somebody I want to meet. But rather he thought, where could I do the most good for the people that I've invested my whole life into? And this is not a unique thing among the Gedolei Israel. You'll hear similar stories about Rav Ovadia and Rav Wasserman and Chafetz Chaim, and all of the Gedolim have some story or another similar to that. And it makes you think, is this a prerequisite to be a gadol? Well, it may be a prerequisite to be a gadol, but there's a lot of other ones too. I can tell you what it is a prerequisite for. Without a doubt, it's a prerequisite to be a good Jew. Is to care about other people at least as much as you care about yourself. Unfortunately today, most people care about themselves a little bit too much. And the more trouble we run into, the more you see how troubled people are, but it's not their problems that's their trouble. It's that they look around and they find no helpers. They could literally be dead on the floor and no one would ask. If it requires more than a couple of dollars to get rid of the problem, most people don't really want to do much. Now, Rabotai, something we all need to think about, because if HaKadosh Baruch Hu did bring the Beis HaMikdash, he'd have to destroy it again, just simply because we have yet to do Teshuvah for the things that matter. Now, of course, this could be misinterpreted into the kumbaya type of love everybody and anybody for any reason, including the enemy. And surely anyone that spent any amount of time listening to our shurim would know that's not the case. But at the same token, I've seen confusion among people that did claim to watch some of our shurim. For example, when we came out recently about asking all of you for help, for anybody and anybody that can or can't do something, to do something, and not just sit there and do nothing. With these young boys being in Nigerian jail, I promise you that you don't know what's going on. If you're looking for the information from the media, whether it's the media's private media or public media, you're not going to get the story. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time reading the conspiracies, and don't waste your time reading what you think is the news. The situation is not an easy one. We've been working around the clock to try to do whatever we can do and what we can't do, and we're still trying to do. But one thing that I learned is that there are some people that can't turn off that selfish button that they have inside them. Simply, it's impossible for them to remove themselves from themselves. Where no one's problem is ever bigger than their problems. You can have someone on the verge of death, or dying, sick, agony, whatever it is, right next to them. And they'll still have some stupid question that nobody ever in their right mind ever asked, because they just feel like knowing. Or perhaps, better yet, some other thing that's bothering them in their life that can't wait. It has to be dealt with now. Personally, I don't think that's a good midah. If you can't remove yourself from yourself for a moment, put your problems aside for a second, see if you could contribute in some way, do something. Sometimes contribution means shut up. Sometimes contribution means talk. But surely contribution is not, can I have some more? It's not a contribution. But unfortunately, some people can't do that. And I think that if we all thought about that for a moment, maybe that's something we should think about doing tshuva for. Perhaps the things we already did, we can't change. Fine. But maybe the next time somebody, your mom, your dad, your brother, your kid, your husband, wife, friend, somebody comes to you and says, listen, I got such and such problems. This is bad and that is bad. Why don't you refrain from being an emotionless loser and tell them about your problems too? Don't do that. Why don't you just sit there and just listen to them for a moment? Maybe that would actually be more helpful than commiserating with them and telling them about your problems just to see maybe yours are worse than theirs. Because that's what a lot of people do. You tell them your problems, and instead of telling you different ways that they can think of perhaps helping you, or just being a listening ear, what do they do most of the time? But you had that happen to you? You know what? Something similar but worse happened to me. And they start telling you about their problems. Maybe we should stop doing that. Maybe the next time somebody comes to you with a problem, you should say, you know what? Tisha B'Av is about sinat chinam. Spaceless hatred. We hate each other for no reason. Maybe part of the way that I could stop hating other people as much as I do for no reason is perhaps loving myself a little less. Would maybe make some room to hate less too. Maybe it'll be a even decrease by both. Maybe I should care some more about people just simply by having a listening ear. They come to me with a problem. Maybe I should just listen to them. Maybe I shouldn't tell them that I have a bigger problem. Even if I do. Maybe I shouldn't tell them that their problem is not as bad as what I went through. Even if it is. Maybe I should just listen. Maybe I should just help them for once. I think that would help. It may not solve the sinat chinam problem that's in the world, but surely it would improve the love in the world. Genuine love, not fake love. A lot of people like to talk about fake love. Hug anybody and everybody, make videos about how you're hugging all types of people in the streets. That's not love. That's psychoticness, that's immorality, that's karet. It's a lot of things. Surely it's not love. You can make all the videos in the world. Hugging people, I could assure you, in Shemaim, there's no bonus points. Not a single one. Unless you consider Gehenom points as bonus points. Having a wedding for two homosexuals with a kippah on your head, for sure, not getting you any bonus points in heaven. Maybe if you consider shutting the door to heaven and only opening Gehenom for the Chilul Hashem, perhaps that you will get. Fake love we have plenty of. I think if we stop telling people that we have more problems than them and just listen to them, maybe even help them, that would be a little more helpful. That would be a little better. You see, sometimes the job that you have requires you to do things that are not exactly as much fun as you would want to have. And one of the things that I noticed is that if you're not going to learn the whole shiur and even the whole series of shiurim that we have about specific subjects, it'll be virtually impossible for you to express the right feelings and attitude towards certain things. When we said last week that everybody should do whatever they can do, and even what they can't do, to go help these boys get out of prison in Nigeria before the situation gets worse. Of course, I wasn't excluding myself. We had to skip a few days of sleep just to do a few things that needed to be done. And Baruch Hashem, so far it's working, but only HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what the results are going to be. But instead of getting the feedback I thought I would get, I had some surprises. Of course, some people very supportive and made some calls, sent some emails, made a campaign to make the spread awareness, different things. Baruch Hashem. Some people didn't listen to the whole clip, so instead of doing anything useful, they just asked me to do more work by saying, listen, maybe you could do this, and maybe you can do that, and maybe you can call this, and maybe you can call that. I didn't take any of that advice, I can tell you that. It's not, you're not sitting there on your hands waiting for somebody to tell you what to do. But some people that surprised me in a negative way. I'll give you a few different examples. One creep, Baruch Hashem, it's only one, sent an email saying, I think that what you're doing is just a manipulation of the audience in order for you to make more money. So, you think to yourself, what good had this person contributed to the world or society at large to even have the audacity to say such a thing? I can assure you, without knowing, nothing. Why? If he was, he'd be too busy to write such a stupid message. Some other people also, again, did nothing or helped in some ways, and some helped a lot, Baruch Hashem. Another one said, I asked another rabbi, and I don't think you should do it. I think you're making a mistake. Shouldn't help these boys. Let them die in Nigeria. Well, listen, they're not exactly religious. And, they're not making any Torah videos. And I'm thinking to myself, it's better that a person like that becomes an atheist than remain what he or she considers themselves a religious Jew. If such a person is a religious Jew, it's better they become an atheist. You think that it's better to let a group of Jews, or even one Jew, die because they're not as religious as you, Mr. Religious or Mrs. Religious. You think it's better than to go and help them. I hope you didn't learn that from me, because I didn't teach that. The worst part about it is that some of the... Oh, I asked another rabbi, and that's what they said. Either the rabbi is an idiot, Erev Rav, or you're an idiot. You don't know how to ask a question properly. But either way, I can assure you that whatever you're thinking, we already thought. Whatever you're considering, we already considered. And if you still think that you can think of something we didn't think and therefore arrive at that conclusion, it's better you don't watch our videos anymore. In fact, maybe you should change your religion too, because we don't want to be associated in the same religion as such an evil person. They'll prefer another Jew to die than to help them, regardless of where their religiosity may be, because that's not what the Torah teaches. And it's because of arrogant people like you that we are in a situation that we're in as a nation. Everybody thinks that they're better than everybody else. Little do they know that if those types of rules applied and were supposed to be implemented in such a way, they themselves would have never done Teshuvah, because no one would have helped them. They themselves would have never gotten a yeshiva education, because no one would have dealt with them. They themselves would have never gotten married, because no one would tolerate them. But people generally don't look at themselves. They look at everybody else. Same thing that they do when somebody comes to them with a problem. Hey, listen, I have such and such problem. Oh yeah, I have problems too. It's the same mentality. It's the same selfish, self-centered mentality. It may not be destroying the Beis HaMikdash, but surely it's the reason it's not being rebuilt. The Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says that originally HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to destroy the secular people and save the religious people. The time of the Beis HaMikdash's destruction. When he finally decided, that's it, I've had it, too many sins, it's gone up to the top. And he sent a message. The Malach HaMavet came and said, Hashem, there's a mistake in the order. You're saying to destroy the Beis HaMikdash and the people, the sinners, but you excluded a group, bunch of religious people. Why are you excluding them? They're sinners just like everybody else. They violated Shabbat, they violated Shabbat. They desecrated Hashem's name, and they desecrated Hashem's name. Hashem says to the Malach HaMavet, trying to argue with him, says, no, but they kept the entire Torah. The Malach HaMavet is a Talmid Chacham, especially when it comes to such a thing that will allow him to feed his hunger of destruction. And he says to Hashem, they kept the Torah, but not the whole Torah. They kept the Torah except a single law. And that law ruins everything. And that law is the law of rebuke. Well, you said in the Torah, Hashem, Ocheach tochiach et amitecha, velo tisa alav chet. You must rebuke your brother, your nation, your people, and don't get to a way of sin. And the sages teach that if you do not rebuke your brother for making certain sins, it is as if you are sinning yourself. If you see that your brother is desecrating Shabbat, or desecrating Hashem's name, or doing anything against the Torah, perhaps even against the sages too, and you sit there quietly, without a care in the world, because you don't want to be involved. You don't want to disturb your silence and comfort. And sages teach in countless places in the Gemara, countless places in the teachings of Chassidut, and countless places all across the Zohar, as well as books of the sages like Sefer Hasidim and so on. Everywhere across the board, same exact thing. Unanimous. You sit there, allow your brother to sin, Kadosh Baruch Hu will punish you for being a sinner. What sin? That sin. As if you desecrated Shabbat, just like the person you were watching. As if you ate non-kosher, just like the person that was eating non-kosher. As if you were desecrating Hashem's name. May Hashem have mercy. Just like the person you were sitting there doing nothing about. You did not help him, and therefore you inherit the sin. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu heard this argument of the Satan, he had to make a change in the decree for the first, and Be'ezrat Hashem, the last time in history, turning a good decree into a bad one, where originally there was a good decree to protect the religious people. And the Gemara Masechet Shabbat says that this was the only time that he turned a good decree into a bad one, because he told the Malach HaMavet, based on what you're saying, the signature of Emet has to be stamped, and therefore go and kill them first. And that's what happened. Meaning that the lack of rebuke was so horrific that it made the religious people worse than the secular people. Why? I'll give you a few examples. You see, the Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah, page 17, says, learn and teach Torah. Lilmod ulelamed. Why learn and teach? All over the place you hear. We say to learn and to teach Torah. Not just to learn. Constantly learn and to teach. Sometimes you could teach an audience. Sometimes you could teach a camera and talk to yourself for an hour. Sometimes you could teach your parents, your students, your wife, your children, yourself. But surely the obligation is to learn and teach. And the Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah says, someone who does not fulfill such a thing, whereby they only learn and don't teach, is like someone who does not have a God. Why so bad? I mean, I'm already learning Torah. Surely I have a God. Gemara says, no, we disagree with you. You are like someone who doesn't have a God. Why? If you're learning Torah, therefore you're learning about Hashem. And if you're learning for the right reasons about Hashem, that means that it's teaching you to be like Hashem, to emulate Hashem in his greatness and his extraordinary traits that he has. What is the first trait that any bardat, any person with a 1 IQ can figure out that Hashem has? First thing, he is giving. Non-stop giving and never receives. The prayers are for you. The learning for you. Tzedakah for you. Everything you do is for you. Hashem does not benefit an iota from anything that you do. He likes that his children do good because then it allows him to give them more good, which is his greatness of expression of how good he is by giving good, but he can't give good without there being a good reason. So he likes that you're doing good. He doesn't need your good. It just allows him to give you good. And in fact, he punishes you when you refrain from allowing him to give you good because of sins. But nonetheless, Hashem only gives. And if you're learning the Torah for the right reason, not to be called a chacham, not to be called a rabbi or rabbanit, not to tell everybody you're more religious than them, not to tell everybody that you're smarter than them, but you're learning about Hashem, then you know what happens? You learn how to give. You learn how to give. Non-stop giving. To who? To anybody you can give to. And if you don't even know how to give something that doesn't cost anything, the Torah that you're learning, you can't even give a Dvar Torah on Shabbat. You can't even give a Chidush. You can't do anything. Then you haven't learned about God. You're learning about something else. You're like somebody without a God. What if you say, no, listen, I learned Torah and I teach. Great, that's a good start, but are you really giving? Because sometimes you can teach, but your teachings, lo b'shamayim, your teachings are not from heaven. Why? Because your midot don't match. You like to tell people what to do, you like to tell them what they should do, you like to tell them how you're right, but in reality, you yourself don't think you're ever wrong. You yourself always think that you know everything. You yourself have no kavod for chachamim. You yourself have no kavod for Hashem. In reality, you're learning the Torah without fixing yourself. You're learning for kavod, for other reasons of benefit, not because you're looking to change. And a Torah like that is not a Torah from Shemayim. Such a Torah, the Gemara says, such a person, it was better that he would have been strangled inside his mother's belly and never come to this world. That's how despicable such a Torah is. So you see, Rabotai, if we're going to be religious, first and foremost, we have to learn why. Well, the answer is because Hashem said so. So how can I show Hashem that I'm going in the right direction? Well, you have to start emulating His traits. If all you care about is your problems, it's not exactly emulating Hashem, let's just say that. Let's work on that. I'm not saying you're going to become Rav David Feinstein, alav shalom, tomorrow, but the next time Hashem sends you somebody to help, don't say no right away. And better yet, don't tell them about your problems. If they wanted to know about your problems, they would have asked you, do you have any problems? They didn't come to you to tell you about, to hear about your problems. They came to you to tell them about their problems. Maybe they need a hand. Maybe they just want you to listen. Because sometimes spilling something out of somebody's heart is the only medicine they can have. The best thing to do, Rabotai, is to stop being so self-centered and absorbed in ourselves where we cannot see anyone that's in front of us if he doesn't look identical to the person we see in the mirror. It's important that we understand that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, but it was destroyed partly because we're selfish. We don't care about anybody but ourselves. When the religious people that knew the Torah were originally decreed to survive, the Satan had a case against them. And Hashem said, you're right, the Satan, I agree with you, punish them first, meaning they're worse than the others. Why? They have the Torah and still are not like me. They have the Torah and they're still not practicing it. Meaning those sinners, the ones that desecrated Shabbat and so on and so forth, surely they're going to get punished. Don't think for a second anyone gets out of it alive. Surely there's a punishment for all. But you know what's really bad? When you knew it and you had the tools and it still didn't change you. Kadosh Baruch Hu is angry at us, religious people. And that's why the Gemara in Masechet Chagigah says that there was a conversation between Jeremiah, the prophet, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu when HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. Jeremiah said to Hashem, no, but they'll do Teshuvah eventually. Hashem said to Jeremiah, show me somebody that's teaching them to go do Teshuvah. Show me somebody that cares enough to go tell them the truth. Tell them that they're going to get punished. Tell them the musar they need to hear that sometimes hurts. Tell them the truth that's going to help them. Surely there's plenty of people that know Torah, but show me somebody that's actually going out there and helping people do Teshuvah. Jeremiah was a prophet, and he could not find a single person and cried to HaKadosh Baruch Hu what we cry to him every Monday and Thursday in the Sephardic Nusach of the Tefillah. Anshe Emunah Vadu. Men of faith are lost. What's faith? What's faith? People that have enough emunah to tell people the truth. The Gemara Masechet Chagigah says, Jeremiah cried. Why he cried? He said there's no way for HaKadosh Baruch Hu not to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. Why? As long as we had somebody out there teaching the world how to do Teshuvah and rebuking them like Moshe Rabbeinu, the world had a right to exist. There was a way back, even if it's 1 by 1. Even if it's 10 by 10, at least someone is going to do Teshuvah, and perhaps there's going to be a cumulative effect over time, and eventually a whole generation of good people will be there. But the minute no one wanted to teach people because everyone was too focused on their own problems, their own new house, their own extension to the house, their own Bitcoin and Schmidtcoin and stock portfolio and real estate and their girlfriend and their boyfriend and how much to spend on the wedding and how much to spend on a divorce and all of these things, no one cared enough about each other to go help people do Teshuvah, especially if it was more than just a campaign. Oh, listen, I'll give $20 to that. Yeah, but what about getting out of your fat chair and going and helping somebody? Do something more than just give $20. How about that? No, that's too much. I got a wedding to attend to. No one cared enough, Rabotai. And Jeremiah said, Anshe Emunah Vadu. There's no more people of faith. And therefore, they lost their right to live. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu had to destroy in order to make everyone realize, both religious and non-religious, that we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat. The ones that weren't doing good, weren't keeping, obviously, was not good. But the ones that were keeping, but not everything, because they skipped the one part that says you have to also get the rest of Am Yisrael to do Teshuvah. Hashem says, if you're not going to care about my other children, and you only care about your children, you're not a nation that I want. You're not a religious person that I want. If you're so selfish still after learning my Torah, I don't want you. That's what Hashem said. He doesn't want a selfish people. He wants people that have his midot, his traits. When we only care about it doesn't help anybody. In the end, we all lose. You see, Rabotai, there's a time to take care of your problems, surely. But sometimes, it's not the time. Sometimes, maybe you should care about somebody else's problems. Somebody else's pain. Perhaps there's a reason why the sages go into it multiple times in the Shas and saying that when you cry over the problems of your friend, your own prayers will be answered first. Well, why won't my prayers be answered first if I'm crying about my problems first? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to us, maybe you have problems, but surely I'm the one that gave it to you. Maybe you're crying about the problems, but surely you may not have the merit for me to solve those same problems that I gave to you. But if you cry over somebody else's problems, and that somebody else is one of my other children, that means that you have already begun to do teshuvah. Why? You're removing yourself from yourself and saying, his problem is priority. Yeah, what about your problem? My problem is my problem. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to fix it, he'll fix it. He may not know this, so I got to help him right now because he has a problem. When a person thinks about his brother or his sister more than he thinks about himself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, now you are emulating me. Now you have done teshuvah. Now you are no longer the person that deserved the punishment that I gave to him a week or 2 months or 6 months ago. Why? Because you're a different person, and that different person that does not deserve the problem, and therefore, in the process of solving the problem for your friend that you're crying, first, I got to take care of something else. What's that something else? Your problem. Yeah, but I didn't cry about my problem. Exactly. You didn't cry about your problem. You cried about your friend. You cried about your cousin. You cried about somebody else because you genuinely care about them more than you care about yourself. Therefore, you're not the same person that got the problem in the first place. The person that I gave him the problem was a selfish person. The person that I gave him the problem was an egotistical person. The person that had the problem was not a person that is you. And therefore, I have to remove the problem. And therefore, the sages say in the Gemara, if you want your problem solved, go start helping other people. Go start caring about other people. This, Rabotai, is why the prophet Jeremiah says again, Im totzia kal mizolel kepitiye. If you take someone that's a luggard, that's a mechalel Shabbat, that's a desecrating Hashem's name, and you help him get back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you will be like Hashem, where your prayers are like Hashem's words. Why? Because if you're going to truly help people do teshuvah, that means that you care about their spiritual status more than you care about perhaps somebody that's even closer to you. You have a son, you have a daughter, you have a brother, you have a cousin, you have all these different people. Now surely some of them are going to buy into it and want to do teshuvah because you told them to, and most of the people are not. But if you're really going to help people do teshuvah, that means you cannot be selective about your customers. Anybody that's willing to listen, I'm willing to help. If you help Am Yisrael do teshuvah, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, you, my friend, are showing me that you're like me. You're like me. You love all my kids, even if my kids are not always your kids. And therefore, your prayers will be like mine. Like my words that I said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. When you emulate Hashem, you can become recognized like one of his sons. But the type of son that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, even his words are like mine. They get fulfilled. When a person removes themselves from their own ego for a moment and starts caring more about other people, Abutai, everyone is the winner. But so long as we only care about ourselves, everyone's still the loser. And we'll be back here time and time again, pretending like we care that the Beis HaMikdash is not here, but in reality we haven't done a thing to change anything. We haven't done a thing to change anything. Sinat Chinam can be expressed in a lot of different ways. Perhaps you're hating people more than you need to. Perhaps you hate them personally instead of hating their actions. Hate the sin, not the sinner. Perhaps you hate them a lot more than you're willing to help them. Perhaps you hate people literally for absolutely no reason whatsoever, just because they look different than you. There's a lot of different ways to express sinat chinam. Now, I don't think we're going to stop people from hating everybody, or anybody for that matter, overnight. It's been 2,000 years. We haven't changed. But maybe, just maybe, if the few of us that are here today, listening to this, maybe even paying attention to, maybe if we try to help people a little more than we try to help ourselves, try to listen to somebody without sharing our problems too. Try to help somebody without asking for anything in return. Just do it just because. It's a good thing to do. Free chesed, not business. Give him a referral because it's good for him. What about if it's bad for me? So what if it's bad for you? Who decides if it's bad for you? Hashem decides. If he wants it to be bad for you, it'll be bad for you. Even if you don't give him the referral. Give him the help that you can. Make the call that you can. Do whatever you can without always asking for something in return. Maybe if we did that a little bit more. Maybe if we stopped being so selfish about our problems and our interest and our wants and our desires and our, constantly, like pirates. Maybe if we stopped caring so much about ourselves. Maybe care about each other a little more. But not fake care, really care. On a regular basis care. Maybe, just maybe, that would be enough for Kadosh Baruch Hu to say, this time is different. This time, they really did start doing Teshuvah. This time, yeah, they still have a lot of problems. And a lot of them are still not exactly where they need to be. But you know what? That group over there, those 10, 20, 50, 100, 200, 500 people over there, this time they did something different. So maybe I should do something different. Maybe the disasters don't have to be so widespread. En bait she'en bo met. No house where there's no dead body. Maybe I don't have to bring a corona. Maybe I don't have to destroy buildings. Maybe I don't have to make cancer so widespread there's no community that doesn't have victims. Maybe I don't have to make young Jewish kids as prisoners. Maybe I don't have to do all of this. Maybe, just maybe, they show me that this time is different, and I could do something different. You never know, guys. It may actually work. We haven't tried it yet. I think we should. You know how you start caring? Do first. Caring comes. If you're going to wait to care and then do, it's not how it works. You have to be like a mother. You already do because you want, theoretically, to have a kid. You have no idea how much you're going to love that kid. In fact, the more you invest in that kid and deal with the headaches of that kid, the more you're going to love that kid. The more Gedolei Hador invested into Am Yisrael, the more they love them. And that's why it got to a point when they asked Rav David Feinstein, what do you want to go? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do if you had a time machine? He says, I'd prefer to go to the Holocaust so I could feed somebody. Yeah, but you can go anywhere. You can go kill Hitler. You can go meet Moshe Rabbeinu. There's so many places you can go to. That's the first thing that comes to your mind? No, it's the only thing that comes to my mind. When Moshe Rabbeinu started to rebuke the people in Sefer Dvarim, it's the last 5 weeks of his life. The entire book is full of rebuke. Ele advarim. These are the words. What words? This is the rebuke of Moshe Rabbeinu to the nation. This was supposed to be part of the oral Torah, but became part of the written Torah. You see one rebuke after another. The entire book of Deuteronomy is one big Musar book of rebuke from Moshe Rabbeinu to the people. But we learn in the rebuke that Moshe Rabbeinu did not want to rebuke them. Why? When he first rebuked the people, he said, you people are mordim, you are traitors. Why traitors? Why, you don't think Hashem is going to give you the water? And he got him angry. And after he got punished, the Gemara says Moshe Rabbeinu had a handful of sins in his entire life. 2 sins were made that day. One was hitting the Selah instead of speaking to it, and the second one was that he called Am Yisrael mordim, traitors. Hashem says, you can't call my people traitors. After that, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to rebuke them anymore. Hashem says, rebuke them, and I'm going to make it a part of the written Torah. But why? You punished me for it. No. I punished you because you called them traitors. I punished you because it was personal. You weren't helping them with that rebuke. There's a time to rebuke, and there's a time not to rebuke. There's a time to help them, there's a time to guide them. There's a time to get angry. There's a time to get sad. The rebuke that you gave them at that time was not going to help them. The rebuke that you're giving them in the book of Deuteronomy, that will build them. That will make them a true, righteous people. That rebuke is the most important rebuke of your life. Hence the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu, who had nothing to lose and nothing to gain during his last 5 weeks of his life, chose to give Am Yisrael one rebuke after another, stronger than ever, because everyone knew he has nothing to gain from this. He can't get a better job. He can't get more time added to his life. There's nothing for him to gain, meaning that the only reason why I'm rebuking you is for you, to help you. It's my expression of love for you. It's not for me to gain a bigger stage. I'm leaving anyway. And that, Rabotai, that rebuke is the most important rebuke that HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to make it the 5th book in the 5 books of Moses. It was technically his personal journal. That rebuke, Rabotai, made Am Yisrael understand all of the teachings that Moshe Rabbeinu taught them over the last 40 years, where the Gemara in Masechet Megillah says, Am Yisrael finally understood what Moshe Rabbeinu meant at the end, not in the beginning. Meaning after 40 years of shiurim from Moshe Rabbeinu, they only finally began to get the message. Why? Because at the end, they realized once and for all, he's not doing it for himself. He's not doing it for reputation. He's not doing it to gain anything. He's doing it to help us. If you're going to rebuke your fellow, that means that you are supposed to be like Moshe Rabbeinu. It's supposed to be kindness. Not kindness that you're, petting everybody like they're some dog. Not kindness like you're telling everybody that they're really nice even though they're reshaim. No, that's not kindness. That's lying. But kindness, where you tell them the things they need to hear because you're trying to help them. You tell them the things that perhaps are hard to hear, but you tell them because you know this is the cure. Not because you think you know better, but because the Torah showed you this is better. Because you saw it on your own skin. You tried it and it worked for you. You're living it and it works for you. You have something good and therefore you want to share it. And that's another way of emulating Hashem. This is why the Gemara says that someone who does not teach, someone who does not rebuke, someone who doesn't share HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah is like someone who doesn't have a God. Because if you haven't gained enough from it, where you realize, I have to share this. It's so delicious. I can't wait to share it with all the people that I can. The ones I love, the ones I don't love. Just simply, it's so good, I want to give it to everybody. If you haven't gotten there yet, you don't have the Torah yet. You may not even have God yet. You see, Rabotai Karim, when we're so consumed with our own problems, it's virtually impossible to see the truth. I understand we all have problems, and I'm not saying to ignore it. What I'm saying is, there's a time and a place for everything. Sometimes it's not your turn. Don't be a baby and say my turn all the time. Sometimes it's somebody else's turn. Help them. Care about them. It's not just you. There's other people. If we do that, I think it's going to be a little different. I don't know if it's going to solve all the problems. We still have a lot of work to do. But Be'ezrat Hashem is just enough to make this nightmarish last year and a half turn a little bit to the positive side. Enough disasters. Enough tears from parents. Enough tears from kids that don't have parents. Enough suffering. For a little bit at least. Give us some time to breathe, to do Teshuvah. Don't force us in such a painful way. Let's get the message, Rabotai. Let's try to do something different this year. So next time, when Kadosh Baruch Hu sees us and reviews our actions, says, you know what? This time it is different. This time it is. Be'ezrat Hashem, this time it would be different. I hope that this was enough to motivate and inspire each one of you. At least, I'm going to try to inspire myself. Maybe this will be enough. This will be enough.